Alright guys, so my favorite thing to see with MMA fighters, or at least what I hope to see every time they perform in that cage, is a new wrinkle in their game, an improvement, a new skill, fixing their mistakes and growing as a fighter. And three fighters on this card not only showed this improvement, but they also demonstrated what could happen when mentally a fighter is as dialed in as they are physically. Now we'll start things off with Mark Diakiese. Coming into this fight versus Joseph Duffy, he was on a 3-fight losing streak. His back was against the wall, he was at risk of getting cut by the UFC, and he was facing a high-level boxer and grappler who also lost his last fight. Now Joe, in my opinion, had the advantage when it comes to boxing, and he also had the advantage with his grappling. So in my mind, while I was thinking about this fight, I felt that Joseph would be able to mix things up and maybe get a submission in round 2. At the very least, I was positive that Joe Duffy would be able to out-grapple Mark Diakiese if the fight ever ended up there. But when the fight started, it was very clear that Mark understood the desperate position that he was in, and he was determined to leave that cage with a win. He came in with a solid game plan of working the legs, attacking the base, punishing Joe Duffy for having, that classic boxing stance, and he also made sure to do this very early on. He was able to damage Joe's lead leg, forcing him to change his stance to southpaw, and this right here is where the payoff was. Now, of course, we all know if a fighter is forced to switch to a stance that they are not comfortable with, it affects everything, but most importantly, it affects the fighter's defense, and this was on full display in this fight. Mark wasn't just able to let his offensive striking shine, he was actually also comfortable enough and confident enough to attack Joe Duffy in the grappling department, taking him down a few times and just overall showing growth and improvement in his overall game. He also showed improvement with his conditioning, which has of course been a weakness in the past, it's no surprise, but with this fight, it was different. He had energy, and he looked like a championship level fighter out there with the ability to go 5 rounds. And it wasn't even like he didn't keep up a high work rate or he was passive or whatever. No, his strike count was fairly regular, and he also initiated grappling. And what this also tells me is that the man he's in a different place mentally, a place that he should have been from the start. And sometimes it does take having your back against the wall, to rise to the occasion and perform as well as you actually can. And that's what we saw from Mark Diakiese. Now, I was rooting for Joe Duffy. There's no doubt about that. I was rooting for the man, but you got to give respect where it's due. And Mark, fighting like he did in the position he was, recognizing the importance of the moment and also rising to the occasion and against a high-level opponent, hats off to him. Now, the next fighter that really impressed me on this card was Leon Edwards. Again, a fighter that had a lot to prove, a fighter that most, including myself, consider to be kind of one-dimensional, a specialist of sorts and not really too well-rounded, also facing a fighter in Gunnar Nelson who, out of his 17 wins in MMA, 13 of those came by submission. So it was essentially the classic striker versus grappler style matchup, except the striker in this case, Leon Edwards, wanted to prove that he wasn't just a striker. He wanted to prove that not only could he hang with Gunnar on the ground, but he could actually take him there and control him. And that is exactly what he did in round 1. Now, the grappling was initiated by Gunnar Nelson, of course, but repeatedly Leon was able to reverse the position, mostly against the cage, and in round 1, he almost had Gunnar's back completely, even attempted a rear naked choke. I believe it was in round 1, but yeah, at some point, he even attempted a rear naked choke. He did all this knowing that was not the game plan. His corner was begging him between rounds to stop playing with fire and return to what gets him results, which is a striking, but he truly believed he could hang with Gunnar on the ground, and he went into the fight and actually did it. Now, of course, his striking is what made the real difference in this fight when he landed a beautiful rear side elbow from over under in the clinch, sending Gunnar Nelson crashing to the floor and almost finished. But make no mistake, Leon showed a new side to his game with this fight. He fought a well-rounded style of fight against an opponent who was supposed to dominate him in that aspect, and it was impressive. It really was. Now, at the end of round number 3, though, Gunnar reminded him of why it's one thing to have confidence, and it's something completely different to have the skills to back up that confidence. And of course, Gunnar was able to mount him, and at that moment, you could see Leon's face like, oh shit, I better hold on for dear life. But it was too late anyways for Gunnar to do anything substantial, and Leon ended up winning a split decision, which I don't agree with. I don't think it was a split decision. I felt that should have been a unanimous decision, but hey, that's to be expected considering where the fight took place and who the judges are, but whatever. Great job to Leon. I'm sure it was a great night for him, minus the part where he got pieced up backstage by Jorge Masvidal, but it's MMA, it happens, and I'm curious to see if Masvidal would actually be his next opponent. Now, speaking of Masvidal, let's talk about the main event. Coming into this fight, I felt like both fighters had to go in there and pull the trigger quickly. For Masvidal, he has lost a few questionable decisions in the past because he just wasn't active enough, and for Darren Till, his loss to Tyron Woodley in his last fight could also be blamed at least partially on his inactivity as well. You know, he barely threw a strike in that fight, and he was just too passive, too cautious, and just allowed Tyron to get comfortable quickly. For this fight though versus Masvidal, the complete opposite was the case. For one, you had two Muay Thai kickboxers, one of them being a big southpaw with a nasty left cross, and the other one a more conventional game-bred fighter. You know, both men ready for a scrap, and that's exactly what we got. Now, once the ref said fight, Masvidal ran to the center of the cage and threw what was supposed to be a front leg side kick to the knee, but Darren kind of squared himself up as he was anticipating that front leg side kick, and it ended up being a low blow. Interesting way for a main event to start, but Darren Till was okay and the fight resumed. Not even 30 seconds after that, Darren lands a clean left cross that dropped Masvidal, and now the fight is on. So we got a low blow, and then we got a drop in a span of a few seconds. Now we can fight. After some brief ground and pound work from Darren Till, the fighters make it back to their feet and the striking continues. And the one thing I noticed right away was that these guys were using a lot of the same weapons, and when this happens, you get to see who is more efficient with their weapons, and you do see this a lot when two Muay Thai strikers are going at it, so it wasn't really anything too surprising. Now for Darren, it was the cross, left roundhouse to the body, left kick to the legs, and for Masvidal, it was his right cross, his right roundhouse to the body, and his right kick to the leg. Now Masvidal specifically fought with a sense of urgency like I don't think I've ever seen from this man before, and his defense was just a little bit tighter than Darren's, specifically when it comes to dealing with the roundhouse to the body. While Darren Till was trying to kind of block / move away, from the body kick, Masvidal was catching him, which is something he actually does very well. And when he catches it, he lets go and follows up with a quick combination to the head, or he tries to go for a takedown there. So that was something that kind of took away that one weapon a little bit from Darren Till. If you're constantly getting your roundhouse to the kick caught, it's going to make you think twice about throwing that kick. Now, as much as Masvidal was throwing a lot from his power side, it was very clear that the money shot was his left hook, and the left hook has always been a very good shot to use against the southpaw, especially as they throw like a straight attack with their lead hand, like a jab. You can go over the top and sneak in that left hook, and boy does it do a lot of damage. Like Michael Bisping demonstrated perfectly in his second fight versus Luke Rockhold. That was the same exact shot he used to put Luke Rockhold away. Now, close to the end of round 1, Masvidal set up a left hook by stutter stepping in with a right hand, and then followed up with the left hook. which landed, but not clean enough to hit the spot. But right there, you were able to see exactly what Masvidal was looking for. He attempted the same exact setup 3 times in that round, stuttering with the right and with the left, and each time he came closer and closer. But in round number two, he found it, and it was glorious. This time, rather than use this setup from conventional, Masvidal switched to southpaw, and then he did something very intelligent. Now, if you switch to a stance you're not too comfortable with, you are taught in striking to attack right away from this stance, and you attack right away. You focus on your offense so that you don't give the opponent the opportunity to take advantage of your diminished defense, because you are in a stance that you're not used to. And that's exactly what Masvidal did, like a well-trained Muay Thai fighter. He switched to southpaw, and right away he fired off a front leg side kick, which forced Darren to move backwards. And before Darren Till could settle completely, Masvidal used the same exact stutter step, this time though in southpaw, to close the distance and launch a left hook with serious bad intention, which landed clean and shut Darren Till out. And as he was falling, Masvidal landed a right hook followed by one more left hook, and Darren Till crashed down, his head bouncing off the canvas, and that was it. Darren Till knocked out cold. Not a TKO, a clean knockout where the fighter is still laying flat on their back unconscious for seconds after the fight is already over. Now, this fight right here, as well as the last 2 fights we talked about today, reminds me as a fan that one fight doesn't really define a fighter. At least it should not. It should not, because a lot of times we are not really seeing these men and women at their absolute best. They might come into a fight in shape, well trained, but a lot of times mentally they're not quite as strong as they can be. But when they are, these are machines. Diakiese, Leon Edwards, Jorge Masvidal, these are dangerous men. And like any dangerous man out there, when they are dialed in mentally, you get to see what they are truly capable of physically, and it's terrifying. When a fighter like Masvidal decides to let his skills shine, let his hands go, and do it while believing with every single fiber of his being that those skills will lead to success, he destroys you. And make no mistake about it, this man is a threat. This weight class is going to get very, very interesting in the next few months. I mean, you've got the champion Kamaru Usman, Tyron Woodley, who is still a world-class fighter in there. You've got Colby, Leon Edwards, Ben Askren, and now you've got Jorge Masvidal in the mix as well. And all of them, it seems, just constantly at each other's throats. Man, I can't wait to see where everyone falls, and wherever it is, I'm sure it's going to be fireworks. But that's it. Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts about the card in the comments below, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Stay safe.
All right, here we go, 3rd and final round.
At the end of that round, his opponent was clearly hurt. He's going to look to start this round off fast and try to pick up where he left off.
Man, I could watch this guy all day. He continues to land a high number of strikes, just as he did in the previous round. And at least to my amateur eyeballs, Joe, he's not showing any signs of slowing down tonight. He blocked the punch.
Excellent defense here. Really good job blocking all those shots coming at his head.
Back and forth we go.
He lands a clean combination.
Watch the shot here, Joe. Gamebred gets caught with that punch. He's treading water now. Gotta find a way to move those feet. Oh, he lands another strike to the body, really starting to pile up these body shots here in the latter stages of this fight. You didn't see a lot of that in the earlier rounds, making up for lost time here.
Nice leg kick. Oh! He got hurt very, very badly. He's in a lot of trouble. Oh, man. He's hurt. That's it. He's out. He is out. Wow. What a knockout. Man.
Jorge Masvidal.
What power that guy has in his hands.
Yeah, Joe, just the way he drew it up as he gets the knockout victory here tonight, it's hard to land a strike more flush than he did right there, and I'm not even sure the opponent saw it coming, so he'll see the replay and probably shake his head, but ultimately this is a huge result and a huge win for that fighter here tonight.
Let's see that again. Crank right on the jaw.
So there he is after a monumental knockout turned in here tonight. That is one they will be talking about for quite some time.